Animation. And the man who, when I read my Batman funny books, he is the voice I hear in my head. Is he the voice you hear in your head?
Yeah.
Let's bring him out. Kevin Conroy.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
I'm not Batman.
And I'm a ham, too.
You actually expect me to top that. Somehow, this is just not going to happen. So, I know they switched rooms on us, so thanks for everybody for being here today. I know we've got the two mics. I'm going to use my outside voice, but I'm going to turn it over mostly to you guys, because you guys are going to have all the questions. But we are talking about the history of DC animation. So we're going to cover the history of DC animation from the very beginning up to yesterday. Mike, you're just going to be telling us all about this. But it's all serious. My history of DC animation goes back to the Super Friends. That was one of my favorites. That was one of the things. Do you have sort of a history with the characters that
I'm older than you. And
probably not much.
And the history of animation with DC goes back to before I was born. The Superman Fleischer cartoons, which are some of the best Superman movies ever made. And they were the first Superman movies ever made. And they did a great job. And then as TV came along, and cheaper animation got our characters out there and kept them out there. DC's animation was still better than Marvel's animation back then. And Filmation came along, they did a bunch of Superman shows and Batman shows, and then they came up with doing their version of the Justice League, which was the Super Friends. And that was a long-running hit for everybody. In the 80s, that kind of died down. Luckily for us, Batman was booming, and they got the bright idea to do a serious Batman animated TV series, which brings us up to where you start.
Yeah, and this is coming right out of the Tim Burton film. So we've got the first Tim Burton film. We've got the we've got the Dark Knight coming in. Kind of coming into the second Michael Keaton Tim Burton film, as sort of around that time that this is coming in. Kind of talk about just even getting the role. It was interesting casting because this was your first voiceover experience.
I had done commercial voiceovers. I'm from the theater in New York. I went to Juilliard. I did a lot of off-Broadway and Broadway. And what a lot of people don't know about the theater in New York is it doesn't pay very well. So a lot of stage actors do commercial work during the day and then go and perform at night on stage. So a lot of people do voiceover work in New York, but it's all commercial based. I was in LA shooting a series. I had just finished Tour of Duty, and I was doing a pilot for a new series. And my agent said, "Look, they're seeing people at Warner Brothers for a new Batman series." And I was surprised to find it had never been on as an animated show. I just assumed that there must have been an animated Batman series because I didn't have a lot of exposure to animation as a kid. And so it was a cold reading. I went in to meet with Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Andrea Romano. I had never heard of any of these people before. And they said, what do you know about Batman? And I said, well, I know, Bam, Pow, Pop from the 60s. And they said, no, that's not what we want. And Bruce Timm said, no, it's very dark. His parents were murdered as a child. He lives in the shadows. He's avenging his parents' death. It's more of a psychological drama. It's more film noir. And I said, well, you're describing a Shakespearean tragedy. You're describing Hamlet. You're describing a lot of classical roles that I've played. And he said, well, just use your imagination. So it was really just a case of an actor using his imagination. I really had no background in what they wanted. And the interesting thing about casting that I think a lot of people don't understand who aren't in the business is they usually don't know what they want until they hear it. So you ask them what they want when you go to an audition, normally they can't tell you. They're waiting to see it or hear it. So it really is often up to an actor making a lucky choice in an audition, because someone may be perfect for the role, but if they don't make the right choice during the audition, they won't get the role because no one sees it. no one knows what to ask you to do. So I just put myself in the position psychologically that I was described by Bruce. And it took me to this very dark, kind of intimate place, and the sound came out. And as I was doing this voice and doing the lines, I looked up and I saw in the booth, everyone had just stopped. Bruce and Paul and Andrea stopped. And then all of a sudden I saw everyone moving around really quick and dark. And I thought, well, I've either done something really horrible or really, really good. So they virtually offered me the role that day. They said, you're perfect. What you're doing is absolutely what we want. So it was just an odd sort of hand in glove moment of my classic theater background training me to approach the character completely with no preconceptions and just make the right acting choice that day. But as it evolved, it turned out to be a great relationship. I work wonderfully with Bruce and Paul and Andrea and I. We've all become very close friends, and we just work great together, and we inspire each other. And Andrea likes to get actors in the room together. So, and a lot of people also don't understand that we get the scripts first. So it's not like a radio play, because the actors feed off each other. So there'll be 6 or 8 of us in this large recording room together. And Mark Hamill and Adrian Barbeau or Paul Williams or Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., the original cast, Bob Hastings, will all be in there feeding off each other. And so this crazy kind of energy would get going in the room. And especially between Mark Hamill and myself. We just feed on each other and get each other going. And we would go wild in there. So these recording sessions, word kind of got out after a while that they were incredible and they were a blast to be in. And so everyone wanted to be on the show. And Andrea said, you know, she was getting requests from everyone, from all these agents, all these actors, everyone wanted to come in and do Batman episodes. So the cast was extraordinary. If you look at who was on that original show, they had anyone they wanted, they were getting. So it was a wonderful experience that I'm just so lucky to have been a part of.
And I think I'm not sure many people know this too, but even when you're doing the Bruce Wayne and Batman characters, those early episodes, you had to go back and even just re-record some of it, just finding the tone of the character, even. Well, it was my idea originally. I said to them, you know, because I was approaching this character fresh. I said, look, let me get this straight. He's the richest guy in Gotham. He's the sexiest, most eligible bachelor. Everybody knows this guy. He's the guy in town. And he puts on a mask and no one knows it's him. I said, seriously? I mean, I don't believe it. Will anyone else believe it?
Here, watch this.
Yeah. You'd never recognize him, right? So I said, let me, be an actor. Let me try doing a different voice. Let me try really making it more convincing. So that's when I came up with the different Bruce Wayne and Batman voices, and it worked great. But initially, early on, I did Bruce Wayne as a real playboy, really a lot of sarcasm. I used sort of David Niven as my visual. Very, very urbane, very sophisticated, lots of humor, and they wrote a lot of humor for me. So there was a big difference between Batman and Bruce Wayne initially. But as they came back from the artist, they realized since they were painting it on a black background, the stories were very noir. It looked really dark. It was kind of jarring when suddenly Bruce Wayne would come in and you'd have this light kind of comedic character. It was too light. So they had me actually go back and re-record the first about 6 shows just to darken the Bruce Wayne voice a little bit, just to bring down the distinction a little bit. And then over time they had me even bring it down more, so that ultimately in the later, like Justice League, the later evolutions of the character, the distinction is pretty subtle. I thought the earlier distinction was a lot more fun, but that's just an actor, liking to play different roles. They just thought that it was a little too jarring, given the dark palette of the show.
And Mike, talk a little bit about what Andrea Romano brings in, because we're talking about the history of DC animation. So you think about all these projects, regardless of whether Kevin's doing the voice of Batman or Tim Daly's doing the voice of Superman, you have all these different actors. But there's one consistent thread that kind of weaves through all of these different things. That's Andrea Romano. Talk about what she brings to all of this and why this just makes us love DC animation.
Well, the thing that's great about Andrea is that you even know who she is. Most voice directors on video games or animation or whatever, you've never heard of them.
Right.
This is a testament to fans, is that they paid attention to the credits, and they actually give credit to who's doing whatever job. And obviously, on video extras or on panels, Andrea is a personality. But what I've noticed just from watching her in action with these guys is that they completely trust her.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever she says is a good idea. Even if it's not the choice that's used in the final animation, they may go with what the actor did first. But she's always worth listening to and trying to.
Well, Andrea started as an actress. She studied to be an actress in the theater, and it just, she's one of these people that starts in one way and ends up in another. So she understands how actors think, and she respects actors. A dirty little secret in the business is that a lot of people don't like actors. They think we're spoiled, they think we're narcissists, they think we're overpaid, they resent actors. But a lot of people really love actors, and to work with someone who understands you and loves you, it just, there's so much trust there. They get such a better performance out of you. And actors know that Andrea loves them. And she knows how, if you tell an actor, no, say it like this, and you give a line reading, it's the fastest way to get the line reading, but it'll be empty. Because all you'll ever get is that person mimicking you. As hard as they try not to, all they'll do is mimic you. But if you say, no, think about where you're coming from. Think about what this guy did to your family. Think about how you're driven to this. Think about the number of years you've wanted to get there. And then you come out with that rage. It's organic. It comes from something. They've given you the thoughts behind it. And then it's real. Andrea knows how to talk to actors. She knows how to guide you to the reading she wants without giving you the line reading.
That's funny because the first 35 years that I was in the business and working for DC, I was editing comics. And for me, what I noticed in a good editor was that they made themselves the person that the writers and artists wanted to do a good job for. It was like their personal success if the editor said, oh, this is amazing, this is great. And I think, and just in the last 5 years that I've been watching the DC animation, Andrea is somebody who you guys want her to say, oh, that was great, or that, oh, I never would have thought of that. And it's all about this, it's the trust, but it's also a loyalty almost too. She builds up a loyalty. She's got a lot of people who will work for her. Now, the other secret about voices in animation, not just actors, is that it doesn't pay as much as you would think it would pay. So, the thing is, I know
they want them to think we're really rich.
No, we don't.
Bruce Wayne rich.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne rich. That's why you can be David Niven whenever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is that a lot of people will work for what the animation can afford, just because they get a chance to work with their pal, Andrea, again. It's not even favors, it's just fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And Mike, we think about casting too, how difficult is it to just not go with Kevin for every Batman role that comes along?
It's impossible.
Unfortunately, I do not get any percentage.
It has been possible, but the hardest part of it is that you all get really mad at everybody. Yeah. And you guys are the ones who really you resist change.
Talk about that process of just like maybe picking another Batman or going in a different tone, or how does that sort of, because we have a lot of different Superman.
Well, the direct-to-video movies that DC's been doing were purposely started to kind of get away from the Bruce Timm look. Bruce Timm was still involved, but they wanted them to seem fresh, because it was already 15 years into it, and now it's 25 years into it. And it's a good idea to kind of scrub the barnacles off the ship and freshen up the paint and that kind of thing. It's not always accepted. At the same time, I think that there have been some good tries and good versions. That's one of the best things about the comic book business and these characters, is that they're very flexible You can have Neil Adams draw Batman one day, and you can have Kelly Jones draw him another day. They don't look the same, they don't act the same, but they're Batman. And I do think that Batman is a flexible character and can accommodate other actors taking their shot. That being said, it's always fun when Zero Mostel comes back to play Fiddler on the Roof years and years later, and it's great when Kevin comes back to do Batman, and it really is. You know, it's a return to something that everybody appreciates, and that's always a good thing.
There's a nostalgia factor, I think.
We
too,
got
that
room
comes in.
for every version of Batman. There's so many Batman projects out there that you can really pick the flavor you like the best and stick with it.
I never thought anyone would come close to Mark as the Joker. His Joker was just inspired, and it is. And then I saw Heath Ledger's performance, and I thought, wow, this is just...
That was a revelation.
This is crazier than crazy, you know? But Mark's is crazier than crazy. They're both brilliant. They're just brilliant in different ways.
The other amazing thing about the casting process is, who in here, before Mark Hamill did the Joker, would have ever thought of Mark Hamill doing the Joker?
Exactly.
That's something that somebody thought of, or some, even if it was just that Mark's agent said, Mark is a really big comic fan, and boy, he would love to do anything on the show. Somebody said, it's okay for him to be the Joker. Paul Williams is a Penguin. I wouldn't think of that. It's amazing leaps of faith that you have in actors, and then they come through. And that's the success of that whole series, is that there wasn't a misstep in the whole series.
The cast was tremendous,
really
and it went on into the Justice League and a lot of other things. So I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions that are coming out there. So what we'll do is we'll take, let's throw it out to the audience for a little bit. I think these guys up here have a few things that they want to hand out too. So if we get,
Well, yeah,
I think
somebody's going to have to vote on what a good question is. You're the guy who votes.
I think I took all your stuff here too. So
No, this is for everybody.
Stuff.
You got goodies.
There's goodies. There's goodies here. So yeah, we got. So if you guys have some questions,
I brought the movies that you're involved in.
those are, which are many movies. So why don't we take? They're right up front
That
here.
one's already got Bruce Timm's signature on it too, so that's a good thing too.
Stand up, use your outside voice. Yeah, give us a good question.
So, as far as I know, we've been talking about the history of DC animation. What about the future of DC animation? They've announced a Killing Joke.
What?
One broken Killing Joke. I thought you
Well, I understand Mark Hamill's interested in coming back.
Right, I heard Mark Hamill's interested. Kevin, are you interested?
I would love to do it. Are you kidding?
Are you
I don't know
interested
anything
in
about it.
Kevin as Batman in the Killing
Everyone's
Joke?
interested in Kevin as Batman.
You guys understand how long in advance that you have to actually record voices for these movies?
Well, yeah.
Well,
I
I hope these guys come back.
I think that does lead us into. Yeah, do we have something we can give out? There's a, I didn't expect the Killing Joke question right off the bat, but
Well, you probably should get the Bruce Timm and
Bruce
Kevin
Timm, the Great
Conroy,
Ghost.
and
There you
Kevin
go.
Conroy signed
There you go.
action figure.
that does lead us into. How do you choose those projects? Because obviously the Killing Joke, that's a huge story to get into, and a lot of these DC direct-to-video, I mean, even when you start off with Superman Doomsday, it's a project that is near and dear to your heart when you go back. How do you decide which story arcs to kind of bring about? And are some of these field testing live-action elements later, like Suicide Squad and things like that?
Well, the thing is, there's even with all the comics that have ever existed, there really are only a handful of classic stories that are great beginning, middle to end, masterpieces. You get to do Dark Knight Returns eventually, that kind of thing. Year One is a great story, and it stands the test of time. Killing Joke is one of those, but it's also been a scary one to get to because it's pretty rough. It's really rough material, and it's also short. It's not really long enough for a whole 72-minute animated film. So it took a while to get to it. Sadly, real-life things like a guy shooting up people at a Batman movie also push things back when we want to get to them because it becomes a little too sensitive.
Yeah.
And these are all part of the backstory of why Killing Joke has taken so long to happen. Bruce had stopped doing the direct-to-video movies for a while, and James Tucker's been doing an awesome job on them. But it was also the kind of thing that you kind of want to wait for Bruce to be back in the arena and working with Batman again. And the timing was just right. Other movies that we decided to do, like Doomsday was a big story for Superman. Even having worked on Superman, there's not a lot of big stories that could stand a translation to Superman. So we tend to do a lot of original stories that take elements from a whole bunch of different stories and make it into something that's new. We've also started doing these, the stories are now all kind of linked together, and it's a one universe, so it's a shared universe. It's not the New 52 per se, it's its own thing. It's the animated universe. And so those stories kind of live in their own place, enabling us to do things like have maybe a Teen Titans that has Damian as the Robin who's in the Teen Titans, which would be different, you know? Is it going to be good? We always hope so, you know, but it's also going to be something that you can't even get in a comic book. It's going to be something you can't get anywhere else. It's not necessarily a test for future movies, but the stuff that works in animation, movies definitely have stolen from animation. Harley Quinn's going to be in a movie, you know? That's awesome. That's amazing. And the Suicide Squad animated movie that we did knowing that there was going to be a Suicide Squad movie, and it really was just a way to get that name and term and those characters out there to the universe, to people who may not have been familiar with the comic books from 20 years ago. So it's been, you know, everything kind of goes hand in hand, and whatever works moves on and goes on to make movies or other animated movies, or sometimes into the comics. Characters are now coming from our TV shows and going into the comic books. You know, Felicity Smoke came from the comics, but she was a super minor character in Arrow. Now she's on TV, she's really popular, the actress is great. Now the creators of the comics want to put that character in the comic, and it's just like everything feeds off each other, and what becomes popular is popular because it's popular. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It is. Good question. Let's go to the back of the room. There's somebody in the back. I see a hand all the way right behind Green Lantern back there. Yeah, all the way. Yeah, in the gray. You. It's you. It's
Oh no, it's you.
It's you. Use your outside voice.
Speak up.
In terms of recording the original Batman, the animated series, Kevin, which episode did you find that you enjoyed or had the most fun recording?
I really enjoyed recording Dreamscape and Perchance to Dream. Those are two of my favorites. And Mask of the Phantasm, which I think it's the best Batman movie of all the Batman movies, the live action or animated or anything, because it gets into the whole background of Batman, Bruce Wayne. It tells you that whole backstory and his passions and why he's driven to be what he is. But Perchance to Dream and Dreamscape I really liked, because actors just like to be challenged, and I got to do a lot of different voices in those ones.
Well, the Phantasm actually reminds me that we should also, we're talking about Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Alan Burnett has been with the project from the beginning. Mask of the Phantasm is really great, and Alan is still involved in all our direct-to-video movies, and he's involved in some future projects that we can't tell you about yet. But I think he's the unsung hero of all of the Batman and Justice League animated series.
And he's another guy who likes actors.
Yep.
It's so great to work with someone who you just know.
A fan of Hollywood and movies, and he really, like, he lives it every day.
Yeah, he does.
And
He's a
just
great guy.
great and knowledgeable.
Good question. Do we have a Batman?
Yeah,
Come on up here and grab your, or somebody hand it back to him. So, you got that one?
Yeah, that one's signed.
There you go.
What's your name?
Elias.
A-L-I-A-S?
E-L-I-A-S, but it's pronounced the same way.
He doesn't care. I thought you were going to pick the one where you sang Am I Blue? That wasn't your favorite episode?
No, we should ask him what his least favorite episode is.
The one where you get to sing Am I Blue?
Sure.
That's a good question. So, what else we got? Right over here against the wall? Yes, in the gray t-shirt. Yeah.
So, speaking of more Batman the Animated Series episode, for the episode, I think it's called Where the Gray Ghost, or the one with the Gray Ghost, what was it like working with the guy who was the Gray Ghost, Adam West?
I was a little intimidated when he came in, because I thought, this is the guy who, established his career doing this and was the voice that I grew up with. And the character I grew up with couldn't have been more gracious. He's the greatest guy. He's an easy guy to work with. He's very open to ideas. Some people as they get older get stodgier. Other people as they get older get younger. He's one of, and I hope I'm one of those people. He's one of those people. He's so youthful. He's got such a flexible mind. He's a very easy guy to work with. I like him a lot. But you're right, I was a little intimidated when I came in.
We talked about this on Comic Book Central too when I interviewed you. The fact that these people don't age. Adrienne Barbeau, she doesn't age. Adam West
That is
doesn't
weird.
age.
It's like the land that time forgot. Some of these people, Adrienne Barbeau looks exactly the way she did 30 years ago.
I was watching her match.
That's a good
She's the
thing.
same
I know, it's a very good thing.
Amazing thing. Go watch one thing. I love it. We got something over. Yeah, let's
Whatever you want to grab
something.
here.
Come on up. Yeah, come on. Grab something here. Whatever you want. You got
I
it.
have some of that.
Where
I wish we had the
here.
but he went here and he went.
What's your name?
Yes, right here.
Ryan.
R-Y-A-N?
Right here. Yeah, we'll go female this time. Yep.
Of all of the Batman that you voiced, which would you say was your favorite?
Of all what?
Of all the
different
Batman that you voiced,
iterations.
who would you say was your favorite?
Well, the first is always the most fun. You know, the original classic Batman. But I have to say, old 80-year-old Bruce was fun.
Where did you find the range?
Down in my balls.
That's the PG.
There are no children here, are there?
DC Animation's going PG-13. We know that. So.
I was talking about beach ball.
What else we got? Yes, of course you would. What do you got? Return the Joker?
Do we have a Return of the Joker here?
Yeah, why not?
What's
There you go.
J-A-D-E-N.
Let's see. We I'm seeing a hand right in the middle. Wave your there you go. Yep. Use your outside voice.
Right. So I remember you saying earlier in the panel about how everyone gets together and you all voice together as like an ensemble. That reminded me of this Justice League episode that you did where you argued with yourself for about 3 minutes. I wanted to ask you how that was.
That was the most enjoyable acting I've ever done.
Who
I've never worked with such a pro.
Who won the argument?
I did! No, I did.
No, it's fun. That's why, actually, it's terrible to admit, but that's why I liked Dreamscape, because Batman is drugged, and he goes back into his past, and he dreams about his childhood. And I did young Bruce Wayne, adolescent Bruce Wayne. I did Batman. I did drugged Batman, and then I did Bruce Wayne Sr., Thomas Wayne. So I was doing 4 voices in the same episode. They all had to be believably related, but distinct. So I said to Andrea at the beginning, I said, can I do this in real time? She said, you mean have arguments with yourself? I said, yeah, let's just see if it works. So we did it both ways. We did it in real time with me jumping back and forth in voices, and then we do blocks of voices so that they'd have clean takes. But it's just fun. Actors like to get challenged. Everyone likes to be challenged at work, you know. So I love being challenged by things like that.
About the psychology of Batman. Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
What do we got? Got a Batman picture? Oh, you want to do one of these? Yeah.
What was your name?
Ryan.
Y-A-N or I-A-N?
I, please.
There you go.
Please. Isn't that real?
So, how about, we got Batman right here. Come on, right here, purple shirt.
B-R-I-N.
Oh, B-R.
Yeah,
That's what you said.
Is there somebody with a Y here?
If they want something that's close to it, then they'll...
All right.
All right, so we got a Batman right here. Batman question. Go ahead, yell it out.
Well, sign that one too.
All right.
Here you go.
Yeah, get that too.
When you did Return of the Joker, it was a pretty thank you.
Sure.
There's a pretty gritty part in that movie. I'm not gonna lie. There's a very gritty part. Where, I gotta say, Tim Drake shoots him, and that's like.
You told me the end.
Spoiler alert. How did it feel? Like when you were watching, just like the playback of that. How did it really feel?
We're always, we don't see those scripts a lot earlier than when we record them. We get them usually the day before or something. And I'm often very shocked at what, we get no warnings at all. No one ever tells the actors anything. Like the second Arkham game where Joker died. I said, what? This can't happen. Well, everybody's played it. Come on, it's been out for years. That's just like so. It's amazing when you see stuff like that. So we actors don't see this stuff a lot earlier.
You're kind of like the first viewer, first customer.
We are like the first customer. We see the finished script. Then it's shocked. Sometimes it is shocking.
I think that is one of the, I don't know if it's the first one, but it's certainly one of the more earlier sort of violent kind of takes on it. It showed that DC Animation was heading in kind of a darker direction. Talk about the decision to go either PG or
talk
PG.
about how violent they feel comfortable writing these things.
We've gotten some R ratings that we've had to trim things out of the latest movies that we've done.
It used to be that there was always a what they call a dying moan. Whenever a character would fall, you'd always hear the stay alive moan. You hear, because no one died in these shows, It
was like the A-Team. You never really saw anybody blow up and land anyway. They just go over a fence and you assume they were okay.
You were silent.
The reality, though, with the animation is that we hang on one second. We offer these PG-13 movies, but we also offer Lego movies with Batman, and we offer Batman Unlimited, which is it's for kids. People who like the PG-13 movies may not like those movies, but it's in our interest to put out a Batman for everybody, and to keep him. That's what keeps him evergreen. He moves through time, because if you're a 7-year-old and your first exposure to Batman is in a Lego movie, you're still gonna want to see what Batman's like in other stuff as you get older. So it really is. It's good for everybody to have a character for them. It's like we have Teen Titans Go on the air right now. That's not a Batman thing, but Batman is in it. And
Batman Brave and the Bold.
Batman Brave and the Bold. And this stuff it's out there for the next generation. And it's the fans who don't like that stuff. It's okay if it's not for you. It's for your little brother and little sister, and they're going to grow up, and then they'll join you in watching the nasty, violent PG-13 movies.
And the lesson for me too has been also the different levels of audience that these shows reach. There are all these different types of audiences for these shows, and I had a young woman come up to me at Chicago Comic-Con and say she was so emotional, and she said, I have to thank you. You got me out of the projects. And I said, what? She said, everyone I grew up with either ended up dead or in jail, but I had you every afternoon to watch on TV, and you were my escape valve, and you kept me interested in school, and you're the reason I ended up going to university. I said, wait a minute. You're the reason you accomplished all these things. You're the reason you ended up going to university. Yeah, but I had you to focus on it, and made me realize how important animation is to so many young people. It's such an escape from horrible lives. It can be. I mean, my adolescence was pretty screwed up. People have all these complicated lives, and the escape of animation is so important, and it hits people on so many different levels.
It's not just animation. It's this fantasy world of comics, of TV. It's a place to go to get away. I know when I was a kid, everyone in my neighborhood, we all grew up together. Everyone was friends. We'd play softball together, do all the things, until my friends started becoming juvenile delinquents. And it was in my interest to not join them, because as the fattest kid, I ran the slowest, and I was caught by the cops, and I'd have to rat on everybody. I couldn't even bear the idea, so I just went home and read comics and practiced drawing and studied animation in high school. And I went where it was safe for me. And I think it's important to just always remember that stuff.
I think you see the age range in the room here too, and it just hits everybody on every level, which is just amazing too. Your question, yes, right in the middle.
Yes, if you in a sense could work with another actor whose voice inspires you and could play a dastardly evil villain, with whom would you work and why?
That's a good
Me?
question.
Yes, you.
They never asked me.
Mike is a dastardly evil villain.
Who the other actor would be a dastardly evil villain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would that person be?
Against Batman.
Against Batman?
Yep. Someone with whom you haven't worked, but would like to.
Oh, God, there are a lot of actors I really
notes, Mike.
respect. There are so many actors I respect right now. I think Hugh Jackman's an incredible actor. I love his performance. And he has great flexibility. So I'd love, he always plays heroes. I'd love to see him play a really dark, nasty villain. Casting is so interesting. Like in Gotham, the show that's on now, the guy they have playing Penguin is so evil. Oh my God, he's so obsequiously oily and evil. But I would never have thought of casting him in that role.
Yeah, it's great to.
But it's perfect, you know. So sometimes not exactly going with the most obvious choice is great. It's just you just want to get actors with really good imaginations who can really play with you. And I think Hugh Jackman might be one of those kind of actors. I think he's really good.
Good question. You get something for her? Yeah, you want to grab something? You get a box?
What's your name?
Angela?
Let's go in the
Thank you.
back.
Thank you.
Let's see. Somebody just wave their hand over there. It's right behind.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead. Flash.
Just a question for Kevin. When you were recording with Mark, did you guys ever switch roles? Did you ever for fun? Just like,
How bored did you get, Kevin?
Well, Betty.
That was actually pretty a radio play.
No, I don't get to do a lot of character voices. Just I don't know why, but I just don't get to do Batman because I'm Batman. I'm the goddamn Batman. Yeah, really. We have goofed around a lot. Actually, there's a funny story. When we first were doing the show, QVC was selling a limited edition, 100 prints, I think, maybe there were 1,000 prints, of Batman and Joker standing next to each other back to back. Maybe you've seen them because they're sort of traded now on the market. And we were sent to QVC to hype these things. And this is like in 93 or 94. I mean, this is really early on. And it was still done out of a warehouse in rural Pennsylvania. So we were flown into Philadelphia, were sent out in a car to the woods in Pennsylvania. And I go, what is who's ever heard of QVC? No one, we didn't know anything this stuff was. And there were like 200 switchboard operators sitting at desks. And this little table, it was all done like, a mom and pop situation. This is how that network started. It was bizarre. So we go in and we're sitting there, and I wasn't taking any of this seriously. And we had these big posters, and they said, oh, we've got these limited edition, artist proofs. And they weren't really cheap, but they weren't wildly expensive. But they were a little more than, people didn't want to throw their money away on nothing. And but these were really beautiful prints. And they said, oh, we have the actors here from the show, and nothing was happening in this telephone room at all. When we started, there was nothing going on. There were these people sitting at this. So, Mark starts, so Patty, I said, goddamn you, Joker. So we just started back and forth with the voices, and then he started laughing, and I started screaming, and then we started fighting at the table. Every light in the room lit up. It's like people going, yeah, hi, you want a dozen? You want a dozen? They sold these things in 5 minutes. They sold out immediately. And it was all because of just the two of us playing. So when you put actors together who really like each other, it's like playtime. And the work just comes alive. And it was so interesting to watch. It was like a Rorschach test, Everyone, immediately you could see, every phone lit up. because people registered because of the characters.
Good question. Yeah, we got something for him.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Gary.
Gary. All right, let's go first here. What role?
Oh, thank you. My question is, what advice would you give to future DC animators or also future DC actors?
Well, I'll speak to the actors. Just be good at what you do. And that goes for animators as well. The animators, there's tons of great schools for animation out there, especially obviously in the LA area. But there's also a lot of schools in Canada for animation. If you can get yourself into one of those schools and really apply yourself and really do your thing, a lot of these schools have internships. A lot of them have placement centers, and they can get you in touch with either agents or actual people who are hiring.
How has CGI affected that?
CGI has affected that in two ways. One is it's more expensive to do, which also means that the talent involved has to be of a higher caliber, because you're actually doing rendering in 3D, which is harder to do than flat 2D animation. And it is obviously the wave of the future.
Right.
At the same time, there's still plenty of markets for the 2D stuff. There's 3 or 4 cartoon channels. I mean, when I was a kid, it was Saturday morning for 4 hours. That was it. Now it's everywhere. I do think that animation is booming. They keep hiring more and more people at Warner's alone. And we're doing, Lego tie-ins. They got Scooby-Doo's and Tom and Jerry's and Bugs Bunny projects all going, and all the DC superhero stuff. There's room for talented people. You do have to be good, but there's plenty of room, and it seems to just be growing. And I say good luck. And voice actors, I don't know how hard that is.
Let's see. Let's go. A little girl. It's like 8,000 hands all pointing over here. So I don't want to be that guy who doesn't go on her. Use your outside voice.
Of all the Batman games you voiced, which is your favorite game?
I think Arkham Knight, the most recent one. From an acting point of view, I got to really go places with that. I'm not going to say what they were because a lot of you haven't played it yet. I don't want to give a spoiler alert. But it goes to all kinds of psychological places that are very exciting for an actor to explore. I had a lot of fun doing that. People don't understand, though, that doing games is 100% different than doing shows. With shows, you've got 6 or 8 other actors. You're all together. It's like doing a radio play. You feed each other energy. You're acting with each other. You're bouncing things off of each other. The 2 hours goes so fast, and the show's done, and then it's edited by the editors. With a game like Arkham Knight, there are 36,000 lines of dialogue in that game. It took 2 years to record. I feel like I have 30,000 of those lines. I know I don't, but it felt like that. And you're doing it because of the way the game is played and built, structurally, it has to be separate. You have to be alone. So you're alone in a booth for 4 hours at a block. Then they give you an hour off to break, and then you come in for an afternoon 4-hour session. And you do that 5 days in a row for 1 block of recording. Then they go off and they write more, and then you're brought back in again to do it again. And this goes on for like a year and a half, 2 years, just to build that game. It's it's not the kind of acting that any acting school can prepare you for, because you have to be completely self-motivated, you have to feed yourself energy, you have to keep the character alive, you have to keep the voice alive. And then they say, okay, now do that with a little irony. keep the irony, and we need a little more humor. Okay, we love the humor and the irony. Now just turn the knife a little bit, And you're just trying to tweak these lines depending on how the game is played. They want all these different takes on all these different lines. By the end of the week, you sort of don't know how to speak English anymore. Seriously.
It really is funny, because when I watch you guys do this stuff, sometimes they'll ask you to do the same line 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. By the end of some of these runs, they're just sounds. They're not words anymore.
Yes.
It's just noise, but and then they pick the first one you did.
So you had to like just physically remove yourself from the building at one point, just like.
Oh yeah, sometimes I just have to go outside. Just get out of there, go outside, you know, just to shake it out. Because just to, you know, you just, it's like a vacuum. It's so weird recording these games.
What's your name? Tyranny. You have to spell that one. Teen Titans? Yeah, you want to sign Teen Titans?
T-I-E.
He didn't work on that.
T-I-E.
Mike can sign it, Mike worked on it.
N-E-Y.
Yeah, I can sign.
All right, so we've got a couple minutes here. Mike, I want to talk real quick about what's coming up. We've mentioned the Killing Joke, so we know it's coming up, but officially, no official word yet on any casting choices.
No official word, not for me.
I'm starring in all the new DC films. He doesn't want to tell you that.
I'm the only guy that could stop it.
We don't want anybody to get in trouble today for anything. We got Bad Blood. I think.
Yeah, the next one out is Batman Bad Blood, and that introduces. Hang on one second, I'm going to get this for you. Here we go. And that is going to introduce the Batwoman character into the Batman family, as well as Batwing. So we're going to really expand the Batman family with this project.
And Justice League versus Titans.
After that is Justice League versus Titans. Thank you.
Good question.
And what we're happiest about in that respect is that for the last few years, the marketing people of the world have been telling us that the only ones that will sell are Justice League and Batman projects. And we really believe that that's not the world we live in anymore. There's going to be 7 DC TV shows on next year. There's 2 to 3 DC movies rolling through the movie theaters in the next 5 years. The world is ready to see what the rest of the DC universe involves. It will still involve Batman, it will still involve Superman, but it will hopefully expand our reach. So if the Justice League meet the Titans, maybe we'll be able to get a Titan solo movie out there, which would be really great.
There's a new superhero being introduced by DC who's an Irish-American, middle-aged man.
I'm Fat Man.